Welcome friends to the course of international business. So, in the last lecture we were discussing about the economic factors and how they affect international business. Prior to that we have been covering we covered some of the facts like the effect of legal aspects on business, then political stability and political condition of a country on the international business, and the effect of culture. So, now we have been carrying on the economic factors and like for example, the GDP of a country, the GNP of a country, then we talked about the unemployment rates, and then we talked about inflation, we talked about productivity. So, how these factors affect any international firm who enters into a new market. Okay. So, we have seen for example, like in the Human Development Index, India is now ranked at for example 130. So, this is an indication, this tells about the development conditions of the people, right. So, when a firm would like to get into a new country, it would like to know its labor policies, its people, and their conditions, right. So, these are some of the things which we have discussed in the last lecture. Today, we will understand the types of economy or the systems of economy, right. So, when we are saying economic system, what it says is a set of structures and processes that guide the allocation of resources and shapes the conduct of business activities in a country. What kind of policies are there, how would you allocate at the resources? It exists in terms of ownership and control of factor of production, and also the freedom of price to balance supply and demand, right. So, economic system is necessarily a set of structures and processes that guide the allocation of resources, right. It is also sometimes understood as a mechanism that deals with the production, distribution and consumption of goods and services. Now, what is that mechanism? That is what makes the different economic systems. Okay. So, when we are talking about the factors of production, labor, land and capital. So, what are the regulations? How is the manufacturing structure, and what is the distribution structure? So, these are all that is counted. So, how this thing happens? The economic systems have to answer three basic questions, right, to decide, judge what kind of economic system they are. The first one, what to produce, right. Second one, how to produce, and third one, for whom to produce. So, when you look at on basis of the answers given here, we have four types of economy, right, systems. The first one is the traditional economy. So, right, you can look at this, then the command economy, then the market economy, and then the fourth is the mixed economy, right. Now, let us go one by one. So, as you say, the name traditional means something that has been there in the past. Okay. So, what does it say? It is an economic system in which traditions, customs and beliefs help shape the goods and services the economy produces, as well as the rules and manners of their distribution, right. So, one tends to behave in the manner that they have been accustomed with, right. So, these are generally rural and farm based. So, we have been in the past, in the earlier days, it has been largely agricultural based. So, we have followed a barter system, then we slowly evolved from there. So, what the traditional economy says, it is largely farm based and rural based, which is agricultural driven, right. Although traditional economies are now rare, they are not much there to be found, because most of the developed or the developing nations have moved away from the traditional economy. Some still exist, but for example, in Papua New Guinea, right, villages in some of the African countries, South America, and in some places in India also, till date you find the traditional economy is still prevalent, right, where people for example, give like a barter system, right, they exchange for goods one thing against the other, right. In India also it is to be found. Then the next one is the command economy. So, what does it say? It is also known as a centrally planned economy, right, describes the economic system whereby the government owns and controls all the resources. Now, this is, as the name suggests, command. So, there is like a commander, the commander commands, and according to his command, whatever he commands, that is the rule of the place. So, the command economy is a key feature of any communist society, right. For example being Cuba, North Korea, the former Soviet Union, and examples of countries that have command economies, right. So, these are some of the command economies. So, where there is a ruler or a type of a dictator who generally dictates, right. So, you see what happens in the command economy. Now, the what to produce, the determined by the government preferences. The government decides what should be produced. Now, how to produce, again the government and their employees, they decide how to produce it, right, what is the best way, and they will decide the best way. And for whom, the government again decides according to the preferences of the government, right. So, everything is being decided by the government or the ruler. The third is the market economy. Now, the market is a very different kind of word, because the market believes in more dynamism and openness, right. So, a market economy encourages open exchange of goods and services between the producers and consumers, and in which individuals rather than the government make the majority of the economic decisions. So, here it is not a one person like a command economy, and rather the people together, right, the people, the government, everybody together, they take the majority of the economic decisions, right. Maybe there are few decisions which are very sensitive and have to be done by a high level committee or something, that is a separate thing by the government, but otherwise everybody is involved, because the people have their representatives, and these representatives are again a part of the process, right. An invisible hand seems to coordinate the economic activity. Adam Smith had said that in his invisible hand theory, that when everybody tends to do well for himself or herself, the nation automatically grows. So, that means in a open market economy, it largely believes in the philosophy that when openness is there and people tend to try optimize their production, their productivity, their efficiency level and all. So, automatically it is the summation of the efforts of all the individuals in the country will tend to have a very large symbiotic effect, right. The government plays little if any role in the marketplace. So, today you see, for example, the Indian government at the moment is seriously thinking about disinvestment and even divesting many of its PSUs, right. So, they are thinking that the government is not the best person to run the PSUs, right. So, it should go to private hands. So, now this there is a debate, people sometimes people say it is not necessary that all the privates are good and all the PSUs or the government control are bad, but whatever it is, right, the government, if at the end of the day it has been seen across the world, the majority of the success stories are with the private, right. So, looking into that, the government feels it is better for the government to think on or work on social related issues and not get into the economic or running a company, for example, right. A purely capitalist economy is a free market economy. So, you can understand from that capitalist economies are like the US, right. So, which has done pretty well, right. Market economy can be identified on the basis of the economic freedom index. So, let us see the coming slide. So, this is how it looks like, some characteristics of a market economy: limited government, system of market and prices. So, supply and demand, there is a balance, freedom of choice, people have a choice to select anything. So, motive of self interest, there is a competition in the market, and so the best one will tend to do well. Private properties are there, so people tend to do earn more money and they have their own properties. So, this naturally drives the economy. Okay. So, based on the 2019 index of economic freedom, Hong Kong with its extremely low tax rates, minimal regulations on business and highly capitalist system of economics ranks as 90.2% economically free, right, which is the highest in the world. Singapore ranks second and is 89.4% free, right. The country imposes no tariff and there are few restrictions on investments. Singapore also features strong in the private property rights. Okay. New Zealand, which ranks third at 89.4% free, which was very close to the Singapore value, also has very low tariffs and strong private property rights. The government provides businesses with lots of flexibility and does not constrict them with overly complicated regulations or licensing procedures. So, that is what today India for example has been advocating and trying to say that we have a single window clearance system, right. We are moving into a single window clearance system. We do not want to have too much of regulations, we want to we have to have minimal policies and more free governance, right. So, that is what the government is thinking, and at the moment we are doing pretty well also in terms of the change in rank of ease of doing business. As I started with, we have moved from 77 rank to 63rd, which is a 14 rank jump. So, pretty good in that way, but then there is a lot to do yet. Finally, is the mixed economy, the last one. It combines elements of the market and command economic system, whereby both. So, there are it combines elements of the market and command economic system, right. So, this is the market economy open, and this is the command economy where there is a ruler, and private enterprises, whereby both the government and the private enterprises influence production, consumption, investment and saving, right. So, market plus command is equal to mixed. There are no pure command or market economies. To some degree, all modern economies show characteristics of both systems and are often referred to as mixed economies. India is a bright example. For example, businesses own resources and determine what and how to produce, but the government regulates certain industries. So, we feel for the safety and the benefit of the individual citizens in the country, the government has to keep them in some control, otherwise the private may go for maximum profit maximization, and this may lead to exploitation of the individuals. So, to avoid such situation, the government comes in between and regulates these industries. So, this is a mixed economy. Most democratic countries fall in this category. There are no truly pure market or command economies, right. So, some of the examples US, Brazil, Mexico, Canada, UK, India, right. So, how does the continuum of economies look like? Pure planned economy, pure free economy, right. So, planned means here we are saying the command economy. So, communism, socialist leaning, capitalist leaning and pure capitalist or pure competition, right. So, from each end if we see, so this side, so North Korea, then socialist leaning China, Venezuela, right. Then for a capitalist leaning France and Sweden, and then purely a kind of a capitalist a pure competition, right, is being followed by United States and Japan. Economic freedom and market transition. Now, what is this connect? Countries with the freest economies have had the highest annual growth and a greater degree of wealth creation, it has been observed. In addition, reports find positive correlation between economic freedom and higher average income per person, higher income for the poor, higher life expectancy, higher literacy, lower infant mortality and less corruption. This is simple because when there is a free economy, there is a competition, everybody tends to try to achieve more or maximize their potential, right, maximum utilization of their potential. As a result of it, everybody grows from the position they are in at the moment, right. So, what is it defined as? Defined as the absence, economic freedom index is defined as the absence of government coercion or constraint on the production, distribution or consumption of goods and services beyond the extent necessary for citizens to protect and maintain liberty itself, right. Higher the degree of economic freedom, the stronger the performance of the economy, right. So, what are the dimensions of the economic freedom index? So, 12 aspects of economic freedom measured in the index are grouped into 4 broad categories. There are 12 aspects. So, what are 12? There are rules of law. So, what does it contain? Property rights, judicial effectiveness, government integrity. Then government size, tax burden, government spending, fiscal health, regulatory efficiency, business freedom, labor freedom and monetary freedom, and finally market openness, trade freedom, investment freedom and financial freedom. So, these 12 aspects have been covered into 4 clusters or 4 groups. Okay. So, you can look at it in terms of the 2019 index of economic freedom, world rankings are given to you. So, for example, these are at the extreme end is the world ranking, then the regional rank. So, the world rank in terms of world rank Hong Kong, Singapore, then followed by New Zealand, Switzerland, Australia, Ireland, United Kingdom, Canada, it goes on, right. And if you come here, right. Then you come to let us say let us see Morocco. So, and third here if you come India should be somewhere maybe this India. So, 129th rank, India is on the 129th rank, right, and the followed last on the last numbers are North Korea, Iraq, Libya. So, these countries they do not have a economic freedom as good as that, understanding that, right. So, the correlations of economic freedom, you see economic freedom and the environment. So, if it is high, then we say free, and 69.5 mostly free and 49.5 is repressed. So, these are some of the values how they understand, mostly unfree, right. So, the category the values, right. I think there is a small, I think this is for should be 47.5 because or this should be little more than that, maybe this is small data, this should be little higher. Anyway, maybe it does not matter because these two anyway are on the dangerous side, right, not so good side, and these three this is on the on the neutral side, and these two are basically on the positive side. So, positive, negative, neutral, right. Similarly, you can look at economic freedom and human development, right. So, repressed, mostly unfree, moderately free, mostly free and free. So, how human development happens when there is an economic freedom. So, these are some of the things, and look at the purchasing power parity, GDP per capita purchasing power parity, how this moves when the country is free. All this if you look at these diagrams, then it will give you a very clear picture that when there is an economic freedom, automatically the environmental condition improves, the human development condition improves, the purchasing power of people improves. So, that is a very positive sign, right. As economic freedom rises, the global economy expands and poverty falls. I think in one of the lectures we discussed about it, how in India the poverty level has fallen drastically, right. India has been able to shift almost 20 crores of people from the poverty line. So, this is something it talks about, right. Average score in the index of freedom, index of economic freedom as it grows, right. The global GDP in trillions of US dollars, right, how it has grown and how poverty has fallen, this connection, right. Transition economies. Now, these are involved in the process of moving from a centrally planned economy to a mixed or a free market economy. So, what is the how in the transition what is happening? So, liberalization of markets to give prices a bigger role in allocating scarce resources between the competition in the competing uses. So, there are some resources and they have to be used, can be used in several ways. So, in this the allocation of resources happens. For example, if you look at the how coal is being allocated in India to different users, right. Privatization of government assets transfer to the private sector, reduction in tariff and other trade barriers, so that the economy becomes more open, right. Reduction in the scale and scope of government subsidies, example to loss making. So, during in the transition economy, the government tends to reduce the subsidies to the loss making, right. There is a lot of legal reforms to protect the private property rights. For example, if you are not protecting the private the people's property, then there would be a fear and they would not try to utilize their money in building assets, and that is not then that means they are not consuming, right. So, that again will have an impact on the unemployment, and thus everything will have a very vicious effect. Banking reform and interest rate. For example, India is can be considered as a very interesting example for the transition economy. Okay. Now, if you look at the classifications, there are some classifications, for example, CEE where Central and East European economies come into, then Baltics, the states in Northern Europe, CIS, Commonwealth of Independent States where you have these countries, and the transition economies in Asia, right. So, these are the classification of the transition economies. India is a classic case, as I say. The investment climate in India has improved considerably since the opening up of the economy in 1991, the globalization, the LPG when we had during Dr. Manmohan Singh's time when he was the finance minister, right. So, important points, India maintains several export subsidy programs including exemption from taxes for certain export oriented enterprises and for exporters in the SEZs. Numerous sectors like these receive various forms of subsidies including exemptions from customs duties and internal taxes, which are tied to the export performance, right. India's mid-term review, right, outlined, right, its of its foreign trade policy outlined a renewed focus on promoting Indian exports while highlighting the need to move away from export subsidies consistent with the WTO, World Trade Organization commitment. Now, there is a pressure on India to come out of the subsidies, so that they should not give subsidies, because that makes unbalanced competition, right. According to Department of Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, FDI equity inflows in India was in 2018-19 stood at 44.37 billion, indicating the government's effort to improve ease of doing business, which has yielded result, and India has moved 14 places, as I said, right. So, this is how it looks. So, you can have a look at it, right. So, the top 5 sectors which are attracting FDI in India, right. And so, central government invited bids of privatization of 6 airports. So, there are some of the events which has happened and which tells about India's transition, right, economical transition. So, intellectual property rights in India is governed under the following acts. So, intellectual property rights is another major issue. So, when you are talking about economic factors, companies tend to get scared that their intellectual property would be protected or not, right. So, the Trademark Acts 1999, Patents Act, Copyright Act, Designs Act. So, these are some of the acts which have been some changes have been made, right. So, and they are ruled by basically these, and but there is a lot to improve. There is not there are a lot of criticisms on these acts also, because sometimes it is being thought that archaic and old, and new formulations have to be done, new changes have to be done, right. So, for example, the IPRI is the flagship publication of Property Rights Alliance. It scores the underlying institutions of a strong property rights regime, the legal, political, physical and intellectual property rights. Interestingly, India ranks 36th among 50 countries in 2019. So, that is not a very nice thing, because if there is an IPR violation, the foreign companies would be scared to do business in India. So, however, you may make policies which are conducive, but still there would be a fear of exposing or taking away their knowledge, right, somebody copying their knowledge. So, you can look at this, and this is a example which I have brought. So, this is the IPR dispute case of Napster. So, Napster is a company in the let me read out for you. In one of the internet's the most well known IPR cases, the Recording Industry Music Association of America sued Napster, right, a file sharing site founded in 1999. What happened? Napster allowed users to share music files, and thousands of people began downloading songs for free rather than buying the CDs. Okay. So, that was a kind of piracy started. It is a case of piracy also, people downloaded free, and so what happened as a result of all this? However, Napster did not own the rights to the music that people were uploading to its servers, right, where the music was stored and ultimately shared. The rights were owned by the recording artists and the recording studios, right. Now, the association sued Napster and won the case. Napster had to close its doors, its servers, as the case may be. Napster now operates as a fee based music download site and pays the licensing fees for the music it sells. So, you can understand that how IPR also has a major influence on the international or the business in any country. So, the kind of protection the government gives, the kind of policies you have, basically if you look at it, all these factors that we are discussing, they have in totality they have an effect on the international businesses, right. So, instead of looking at a one sided effect, or one aspect of it like economic or legal or political, we need to have a holistic effect, check the holistic effect, right. So, there is one more case I have brought, you can look at it in your free time, you can go through it. So, this is the case of Barbie, how Barbie also had to go through condition, and the other company Braz, the company is Carter Bryant. So, he was a designer. So, what happened in this case, you can look at it. So, this is all we have it for the day, and thank you very much.